I'm often asked questions about what supplements bodybuilders used in the so-called golden age of bodybuilding. Now, the golden age of bodybuilding is usually considered to be the mid 1960s to the early 1980s. And people are very curious, especially younger bodybuilders. They see photos of these bodybuilding champions of that era, and they wonder, did they use supplements like they do today? Did we have this opportunity to purchase a wide variety of supplements such as available today? And were the supplements better or worse back then? So today I'm going to discuss so-called old school supplements and whether they have any relevance to today's people who are involved in resistance training, whether it's bodybuilder, as a bodybuilder, or a recreational exerciser. So let's talk about some of the more popular supplements that were commonly used back in the days when Arnold ruled the posing platforms. So one of the things that's interesting, protein powders. You had back then in those days, you didn't have the high-tech protein powders like whey protein. The protein powders were not as high in protein. You still one of the more popular protein powders was soy protein. Soy, of course, is a plant-based protein. It is considered a complete protein. It has all the essential amino acids. It is pretty. It's not quite as much leucine as which is a branched chain amino acid, considered the most potent amino acid involved in muscle protein synthesis. It has a little bit less than whey protein, and for some reason, soy protein tends to be metabolized differently than, let's say, animal protein such as whey. Whey protein tends to be the protein in whey is actually used more by internal organs rather than muscle for some reason. However, other studies dispute that and find that soy protein is almost as good as better so-called better proteins like whey. The difference is you have to use more of soy protein, and this goes for all plant-based protein powders, soy, rice, hemp, all of these so-called plant-based protein powders. They could be actually as good as a whey protein. You just have to use double the dose because they don't have the extent of essential amino acids that is contained in whey protein. That's what makes whey protein so superior for building muscle. It's the essential amino acids that are needed. Now, back then, we had, like I say, soy protein. The other type of protein powders, they had meat protein, organ meat protein. I'm trying to remember. There's one called Malabar that I remember. It was called Malabar. It consisted of various beef organs, liver, heart, kidney. I don't even remember what the other organs were, but they were all basically dehydrated, desiccated, and put into powder form. It was a coarse protein. The texture was very bad. The taste was horrendous. But it was actually not a bad quality protein if you can get past the taste, and the mixability wasn't that great either. They did have a couple of milk-based proteins, particularly milk and egg protein, especially towards the late 70s, started to become the premier sources of protein supplements. One of the first milk and egg protein supplements was manufactured by a guy who called himself Rio H. Blair. It was called Blair's Protein, and it was used by some of the top bodybuilders of the late 60s. Larry Scott, first Mr. Olympia winner, Don Howarth. A lot of the top bodybuilders in those days used Blair's Protein. Blair's Protein was a milk and egg protein. It's actually nothing more than powdered milk with powdered eggs in there, and it was only 62% protein. It had some carbohydrate, but the good thing about Blair Protein, it was exceptional taste. It had an exceptional taste. Blair sold a coconut extract that you can add to the protein, and he advised bodybuilders who wanted to put on muscle size to mix his protein, Blair's Protein. It was like a vanilla flavor. Mix it with heavy cream, and if you added the coconut extract, it made this concoction that was absolutely delicious. I tried it myself. I used to mix it in a blender. When you put in the raw cream, It got so thick that you couldn't drink it. You had to eat it with a spoon. But with the addition of the coconut extract, it tasted better than any ice cream I've ever eaten. I mean, I got addicted to this stuff. I was eating it something like 6, 7 times a day, and I wound up gaining too much weight. To put it bluntly, I got fat because it was way too much fat. I was eating all this heavy cream. Now, skinny, lean guys could get away with that, but I was never a skinny, lean guy, so I had to stop doing that. But Blair's protein was one of the more popular proteins. A good friend of mine, Dennis Tenorino, who won the Mr. America in 1967, and he won several Mr. Universe titles. Dennis, when he was living in New York, that's where I met him, he made his own protein powder. What he did is he simply bought non-fat milk powder or dried milk powder, and he mixed it with powdered egg whites, which he got at a bakery, and he had his own homemade milk and egg protein, which, interestingly enough, was about as good as any of the commercial protein supplements that were being sold at the time. But Dennis's protein powder cost him pennies compared to a lot. These things were much more expensive. The commercial versions much more expensive, so those were the protein supplements. Now, the protein supplements were used by bodybuilders, but back then the reliance was on food first. In other words, the bodybuilders got, I would say, at least 95% of their protein from just actual food sources: milk, fish, eggs. Very popular protein back then was cottage cheese, cottage cheese is almost pure casein, which is one of the two proteins found in milk. The two proteins in milk are casein and whey. Casein is a slow release protein that when you consume it orally, it curds in the stomach, and the amino acid content is released over about 7 hours. It's very good for maintaining a anabolic effect. It's almost like having an IV in your arm of amino acids. My lunch for about 25 years when I was competing in bodybuilding, or when I considered myself a competitive bodybuilder, let's put it that way, I had the same lunch every day. I had a carton of low-fat cottage cheese and 1 or 2 cans of water-packed tuna. That was my lunch every day for 25 years. Sometimes I'd bring it down to the beach, and I'd eat it while lying out in the sun, lying on a blanket. I'd eat, a thing of cottage cheese, a tub of cottage cheese, and a can of tuna while lying on the beach. I would do that quite often. Both sources were excellent protein. And so those were the protein sources of the golden age of the bodybuilders. They also had a supplement very popular back then, was called desiccated liver. Desiccated liver was basically liver that was dried, and it was made into either a powder form. All the water was removed, so you were left with a kind of a dark brown powder, and it was found in either liver tablets or liver powder. I tried both of them. Liver, there was ideas or notions that taking liver not only provided excellent protein, but it also provided a good amount of other, let's say, nutrients that would increase muscle endurance, help you train harder, help you recover. I once bought a can of commercial desiccated liver powder. I think, if I remember correctly, it was made by a company called Plus Nutrition. I could be wrong about that. This is, God knows, this was many, many years ago. And I kept it in my desk drawer where I lived in Brooklyn, where I grew up with my mother. And one day my mother was kind of cleaning out my room. She opened my desk drawer and she found this can of liver powder. And she opened it up and smelled it and thought that whatever it was rotten, and she threw it away, which really pissed me off because my only income came from working as a newspaper boy. I delivered newspapers, and that can cost me about $7, which to me was a lot of money. But what can I do? She threw it away. But liver powder wasn't a bad supplement in its day, but you don't hear about it too much. Although sometimes I get emails and questions from people asking if desiccated liver is still a valid supplement. I would say it's not bad. It's not going to hurt you, but and back in the day, in those days in the 70s, bodybuilders took a lot of liver tablets. Frank Zane, who won the Mr. Olympia 3 times, was a huge advocate of desiccated liver tablets. He used to order them at 10,000 of them at a time. And he would take 50 to 100 liver tablets a day. And a lot of other top bodybuilders were doing that too, so I did that. I was taking about 50 to 100 liver tablets a day. And the one thing I could tell you is that it gave you a lot of gas, a lot of intestinal gas. I mean, you could lose friends on this stuff, let me put it that way. But the main problem from a health viewpoint of why desiccated liver kind of, well, besides the taste and, there was better proteins that came out, let's put it that way. But the problem with desiccated liver was very high in iron. Now, that's good for women who lose iron, but for men, taking in that much iron, too much iron is no good. Iron could become oxidative and cause various diseases, brain disease. It can cause cardiovascular disease. And if you're taking in too much desiccated liver, you would take in too much iron, which is not healthy. So for that reason, desiccated liver fell out of favor, mainly because of the appearance of newer and better tasting food supplements. A supplement that I tried, one of the first supplements I tried when I was about 12 years old, was called brewer's yeast. Now, I got to tell you, I didn't know much about supplements. I first got my first interest in supplements came. My bodybuilding idol was Bill Pearl, who had won Mr. America, Mr. Universe several times, and he recommended a book called Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit by a then famous nutritionist called Adele Davis. And in the book, she talked about brewer's yeast and how it was a great source of B complex vitamins, and it contained something called the glucose tolerance factor, which turned out to be a combination of niacin and the mineral chromium. She recommended it, and since Bill recommended the book to me, and I respected Bill, I tried brewer's yeast. It didn't taste very good. I used to mix it in I don't remember what I mixed it with, but I tried it, and it was, to this day, it's still a good, fairly natural, good source of B complex vitamins, and it is probably one of the best natural sources of the trace mineral chromium, which does help you modulate your blood glucose levels. But it's kind of passé because, again, you could get chromium separately. It's found in a lot of other supplements, and the B complex content of brewer's yeast was kind of weak. It wasn't what you call high potency. So, in other words, it's still available today. It's a safe supplement, but it doesn't taste good, not very good. Another supplement I tried back then was wheat germ oil. Wheat germ oil was touted because I remember there was a famous swim coach who gave all of his champion swimmers, these were collegiate swimmers, he had them on wheat germ oil, and they were all kind of national champions. And then some research at the time suggested that wheat germ oil could increase exercise endurance. That sounded good to me, so I tried wheat germ oil. It was also a good source of vitamin E, a natural source of vitamin E. And so I used it for a while. I didn't really notice anything, but I also used wheat germ itself. In fact, the very first, I think it was one of the first supplements I bought. I didn't buy in a health food store. I bought it in a supermarket. It was called Kretschmer's Wheat Germ, which I believe still is available today after over half a century. I think it's still around. But I used to use that as a cereal in the morning. Instead of eating Wheaties or some junk like that, like Cheerios, I would just take wheat germ, Kretschmer's wheat germ, and add a little bit of not sugar. I would use I believe I used saccharin back then as a sweetener, and I would take that as a breakfast. It wasn't bad. Now, wheat germ oil again fell out of favor. It's not, you don't hear about it being used today, but it kind of came back in a different form because there's a supplement touted for its anti-aging effects called spermidine. Now, it turns out wheat germ is actually one of the best natural sources of spermidine. Spermidine, I'm not going to get into this video. I did another video about it. It's supposed to have a lot of anti-aging effects. It's supposed to be very good for your heart. But most of your spermidine supplements are derived from wheat germ. They're actually derived from wheat germ because wheat germ, again, is one of the best natural sources of spermidine. And by the way, I should also note that people who live, let's say, a long time, 90 to 100 years or more, they always tend to have higher spermidine levels. That's probably one of its associations with life extension or longevity. Another popular supplement back then was kelp tablets. Kelp tablets are it's a form of seaweed, and its active ingredient is a trace mineral iodine. And even back then, we all knew that the thyroid hormones, of which there are two main thyroid hormones called T3 and T4, they were composed of 2/3 iodine and 1/3 amino acid tyrosine. And so the idea is that if you wanted to keep your metabolism going, for example, when you dieted, when you reduce your calorie intake or carbohydrate intake, you would tend to encounter what they call a dieting plateau after about 3 to 4 weeks, where the weight loss or fat loss would stop. And this was attributed to a lower metabolism. So bodybuilders back then would take these kelp tablets with the idea that it would stimulate thyroid gland or thyroid hormone synthesis and maintain your resting metabolism. I remember taking 50 kelp tablets a day while preparing for a contest. Now, the truth of the matter is that if you take too much iodine, it can have a reverse effect. It's called the Wolff-Chaikoff effect, where your thyroid gland becomes resistant to taking up iodine, so you can actually have a reverse effect and get a lower thyroid output. But there's another situation that takes over that kind of bypasses that effect and allows the iodine that you ingest to get into the thyroid, where the iodine is used for thyroid hormone synthesis. That explains why when I took 50 kelp tablets, which is a massive amount of iodine, I never had any thyroid problems that I knew about. I didn't have any hypothyroid or low thyroid symptoms. Nothing happened at all in that respect. So those are actually the main supplements that were used back then. As I said, the bodybuilders, including myself, we relied mostly on whole food rather than supplements. There's a couple of other standard supplements that were taken. I believe we took a vitamin mineral, at least I did, vitamin mineral and vitamin C and E were the added vitamins. Vitamin C, there was always an idea that it was just a health vitamin. It helped you prevent colds and all that stuff. That was the belief back then. Whether it's valid today is debatable. Vitamin E was also supposedly very good for your muscles and your heart, cardiovascular function. More recent research shows that vitamin E actually does help protect your muscles because it prevents the oxidation of cell membranes that surround muscle fibers. It protects them from undergoing oxidation, which keeps muscles healthy. So vitamin E actually does keep muscles healthy. We thought it might back then, but nobody really knew. But we took it anyway. I took about, if I remember correctly, I was taking about 800 units of vitamin E, and I took about 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Today I take about 400 to 600 units of a form of vitamin E called gamma tocopherol, because this is the only form of vitamin E. There's actually 8 forms of vitamin E. There's 4 tocopherols and 4 tocotrienols. The most common one is called alpha tocopherol. That's what you see in most vitamin mineral supplements. But the form of vitamin E that has an association with preventing disease more than the others, such as cardiovascular disease and prostate cancer, is gamma tocopherol. So that's the form I use, and I use 600 units a day. I take 300 units twice a day. As for vitamin C, I take a supplement that contains vitamin C with bioflavonoids. Bioflavonoids are substances found associated with vitamin C and natural vitamin C food sources like fruit. So I take a vitamin C with bioflavonoids because that's the most natural way to take vitamin C. And I take about 1,000 milligrams a day right now. And I believe that's enough because the blood saturation level point for vitamin C, meaning the maximum amount of vitamin C that can be accepted orally in the blood, is 200 milligrams. And if you take in more than 200 milligrams orally, you start to piss out the rest of it. In other words, you can only really use 200 milligrams of vitamin C at a time. Another interesting fact about vitamin C is that it lasts 12 hours. So if you take vitamin C in the morning and you take it at night, you basically have 24-hour coverage, which I try to do. I take it twice a day. So I think that's about it for food supplements that were popular in the 70s and the ones that are relevant today. And I'll sum it up by saying that most of these supplements, again, they're not as really great as or high tech as the current supplements, but they did provide some health benefits, and if they weren't used in excess, they actually could help you a little bit. They could definitely help with your training, but you could try them if you want. But as I say, they're kind of crude compared to today's supplements. There was no emphasis on taste or texture back then. All they did is give you the supplement. So keeping that in mind. Most of these supplements are still available today. So I'll leave it at that. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, ergogenic aids, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, hormone therapy, effective fat loss techniques, which are the best techniques for losing body fat, excess body fat, in a safe manner, women's health and fitness. All of these topics are covered in my Applied Metabolics, www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's 30 to 50 pages every month, no ads, no commercial ties. This is the most solid, in-depth information you'll find based on my over 60 years of experience and knowledge, constant study. I guarantee you there's nothing comparable to it on the entire internet, nothing comparable to it. And most of the other digital publications are not written by people who have professional writing experience like me. I know how to write for the public. The Applied Metabolics is written in a plain magazine style that anyone with up to a sixth grade education or more, I should say, should understand and benefit. You'll get a lot of benefit from it, no matter what your level of education. I promise you that. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general health and medicine. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage where current subscribers can send me short questions about anything they read in Applied Metabolics or anything that they're curious about related to nutrition and exercise, and I will answer their question in appreciation for their subscription and also as a kind of a bonus for their subscription. Obviously, this personalized response is only limited to current subscribers. So if you think my YouTube channel, this channel, is of any value, please subscribe. It's completely free. I post a video every Tuesday, and by all means, let others know about it. Again, there's no bells and whistles. There's no little short videos as I'm talking of people laughing in the camera, which is, stupid nonsense to me. I personally, I don't want to get into a tirade, so I'm not going to say anything, but I look at that as an insult to people's intelligence, where they have to, they're talking about a so-called serious subject, and suddenly you see a video come on, a brief video, somebody going like this. Why? I mean, is that supposed to be entertaining? I don't get it. I mean, I just don't understand that. To me, it kind of takes away from the credibility of if you're giving serious information, you're giving serious information. I mean, I've seen other videos. Well, here I am. I'm on a tirade anyway. I've seen other serious videos. There's one guy, and I want to mention his name. He's a knowledgeable guy. He's supposedly a professor, and he does resistance training videos. His favorite thing is to critique other people's training, whether it's a trainer, a bodybuilder, celebrity. He likes to critique their training methods. And what he basically does is I can't watch his videos anymore because he gives very little useful information. What he does is he likes to crack jokes throughout the video. This is a guy who can't make up his mind whether he wants to be a legitimate educator or a comedian. He just, but I think he thinks he's trying to be entertaining. I think he's trying to get viewers by, being funny. He's trying to get more viewers. But to a person who's trying to learn something, his constant jokes and one-liners are jarring and distracting. So I don't watch those kind of videos. They annoy the hell. I just can't watch them. If you want to be a comedian, do comic videos. There's nothing wrong with that. Do funny videos. But if you're trying to give information, Be serious. Otherwise, you might as well might as well wear a clown outfit, for crying out loud, you know? Anyway, thanks for listening. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. Take care.